Hey, good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. Happy New Year. I know there's a lot of questions here about what's going on, but I see a few in your comments there. Thank you for that. If you can, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Hit the notification button as well if you can. Obviously, 5 years ago today, as you know, it's January 6th. That picture of what you saw was of the night of January 5th. And 5 years ago, last night, in front of the Willard, Roger turned around. My friend Roger Stone, he gave a speech to, the first one was in front of the Supreme Court that day. And the second one was at the Freedom Plaza. I'm going to tell you this. When I was there previously in D.C., we were not well received. So that day, everybody was so happy to see Roger. And the last time that I had been there was like chaotic and people like calling us names. I mean, I was called names and they didn't even know who I was. So it was quite a moment. And then he turns around to the crowd and does that were at the base of the hotel, and like here we are walking around, and they act like it was like God knows, it was the crime of the century, guilt by association, all that other stuff. But that was like the last time I could think of like actually smiling about things, because it's been hell ever since, especially the next day and everything that happened afterwards. Of course, myself, Roger, we had nothing to do with anything, but it doesn't make a difference. It was guilt by association, innuendos, false media narratives, perception management, and that was it. And, many lives have been ruined ever since. It was a crazy day, which I was trapped in a hotel, but some wanted to run with some other narrative. And then you had your little sedition hunters hunting down, grandma, and this one. Just a crazy day. And, all these years later, you still don't have answers on how that all went down. But a lot of things happen, and what can I say? It's a day that I guess will go down in infamy, maybe for either for the right or wrong reasons. Who knows? I see. And I see in the comments, I see Joel's here, Hassan Mo, by the way, I still have your coffee. I haven't forgotten. And I see Eric Sanders, who's, I guess, name keeps popping up with things. So before I address this other thing about Steve Bannon, obviously you see this is a different kind of layout. What happened is, listen, people have different points of views. I don't know what you want to say. All I can say is I thought cooler heads would prevail. But there's no hard feelings between me and Finest Unfiltered. Everybody's still family. People still text or call each other. But I think, what can I say? Going in a different direction, maybe. Best way to put it is this is going to be Sal Greco Show unrestricted. And I guess I'd leave it at that. I wish everyone well over there. Like I said, there's no hard feelings. I don't think anyone should look more into things and try to throw things on there. And you could keep, whatever you want to say or think, it's wrong. Lily, nice to see Lily in the comments. She said, so you're no longer with the network. Did you get terminated? No, I don't get terminated. I think it was just two different, a different philosophy, you want to say, or whatever. Like, it's just sometimes everybody that's together, they just pick up and say, I want to do something different, or we have a different outlook on things. So that's the best way to me to put it. It's no hard feelings, like I said. And, creative differences occur all the time. Eric said that. So yeah, it's what it is. Creative differences is a good way to say it. But it's just like I said, it's no hard feelings. I think some people looking too much into it, and it's not that. So, obviously now we're on my channel, the Sal Greco Show. So this is a different channel. So if people could subscribe here, also on my Rumble, which is the Sal Greco Show. I also have TikTok, the Sal Greco Show. I have an Instagram, which is the Sal Greco and the Sal Greco Show. And obviously we're streaming live on X on the Sal Greco. So you could also like and share, spread it out, especially to those on that low information bubble. The next thing I want to get into is this Steve Bannon, because, bringing up January 6th. So there's something that came out today, I believe, in a Business Insider. Steve Bannon discussed using an obscure legal tactic to join Jeffrey Epstein's legal team. I got to say this, this guy Bannon, whose name has come up like a billion different times and like so many different things, and yet he never faces scrutiny, or they never bring this up. Why? What is this guy's association and affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein? Steve Bannon was working for the Trump administration. He was seen with Jeffrey Epstein. You saw the Epstein files. He's a name that everybody says, President Trump here with Epstein there. But there was a long time that President Trump, at that time, civilian Donald Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein, they weren't even talking. And, we basically threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. But the files have shown emails that go back and forth with Steve Bannon, who thought he was a Republican, a conservative. What is he doing with this guy? People should be asking questions and bombarding his show, The War Room, and asking him, call in, whatever it is, email him. What is your affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein? I find this quite interesting. I was one of the first to tell a lot of people, like 2 years ago, I knew about this. There was websites and pointing to this, and everybody ignored it. But Bannon Epstein is something people should be looking into. I mean, there's emails. Every droplet of this Epstein file shows me Steve Bannon's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and nobody talks about it. But here's a guy who's allegedly someone in Trump's world. I don't know about that, but he's clearly got an association with him, and he was in the administration. So what was he trying to do? What was he doing? Then he got indicted. Crazy stuff, later on with Build the Wall. And, he's an unscrupulous figure, by the way, in MAGA land and conservative circles. But no one seems to ask that question. I find that bizarre. I find that bizarre. This guy is in this Epstein. Nobody asked why. And I'm asking why. Because his people, Boris Epstein and Artie Idala was his lawyer. All these people then crisscrossed with Eric Adams, and all of a sudden his case was dropped. There's a lot of things going on. But this thing with Epstein, very interesting with him. So I guess if you need to shop, I know holiday's over. If you're going to go shop, please use freedomcart.com, myfreedomcart.com/the Sal Greco Show. Check this out. Shop with Patriots. I mean, why would you go to Publix and have to deal with 40 minutes of your own chaos with people? If you go with your family and you got to keep the kids and watch them and watch your significant other try to, run after them, you just shop online, have everything come to your home. And of course, if you are, using other search engines and other apps to get your news, why do that when you get something that's not biased and free spoke, right? I know you surf the internet and you search for things on the search engine and you don't get what you're looking for. Well, I have a solution for you, and that's Free Spoke. Free Spoke is a search engine that does everything without all the restrictions and all the censorship, and there's no porn ads. Free Spoke is about authenticity rather than agendas. Labels media bias, no intrusions or data leaks, no porn ads, like I said, unlimited, unbiased AI, also deep dive podcasting. You can look it up, Go to freespoke.app.link/Greco. Download the app. You could also use the same link to get 35% off the premium subscription, which would be well worth it. Try it out. freespoke.app.link/Greco. There you have it, folks. And Greco 35, get your 35% discount on a subscription. And you can use it for AI too if you want to write articles or research things. And of course, it has a button to tell you could get your news unbiased. So I know there's a lot going on over this last couple of days, right? Because over the weekend, what do we have? Nicholas Maduro, the president, or what you want to call him, dictator of Venezuela, he was captured. There it is right there. You know, the U.S. sent for, I don't know why anyone thinks the president can't do this and there's other things going on behind that, but the president did authorize this, and they brought Maduro in, and somehow he's got extradited to New York City. I don't understand that one, because the cases could be brought in Miami. So this is going to be a hot topic. So let me bring on, of course, my producer, Jack, who's going to be the wingman here on today's show. So, Jack, how are you? How's everything? How was your New Year's?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. New Year's was great. I went out and had a fantastic time with friends, except for the fact that I now am running 100-degree temperature. So I think I got sick at a large gathering on New Year's. But no, I had a fantastic New Year's. Very excited for what's to come in 2026. And in regards to the split between us and everyone else from the Finest Unfiltered, listen, we're still in this fight for reform and betterment of society together. We're still looking to achieve the same things. We just had kind of a difference in ideas in terms of how to accomplish the end goal. So we wish them the best. They've wished us the best. And it was a very clean split, as the case usually is in the media industry.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. So, this Maduro thing, right? I know I don't know if you have a video of Trump. Trump came out and spoke about this. I guess Eric is clarifying that Southern District of New York is a correct jurisdiction because it's in the Caribbean. Okay, because there's a lot of people asking me personally, why isn't it in Miami? Obviously, Miami would be a better jurisdiction. You know, New York, who knows what kind of jury pool you get? Because we're going to show you some clips about that. So let's put up what Trump had to say to the president in regards to this.
Yeah. Before we play that, part of the reason people are calling for Maduro to be tried in Miami is because of a lot of the drugs that he was smuggling from Venezuela were coming through Miami. Like he was getting them in through the port, and they were being distributed to the Midwest, the Northeast, even the West Coast in some cases, as the FBI has uncovered. So that's why people are calling for him to be tried in Miami. Very faulty logic. Eric Sanders is correct that he should be tried in the Southern District of New York. But anyway, let's hear what President Trump had to say about all this.
He did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted on many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different?
Well,
would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
It's, you know, Jack, I find it odd that everybody he's always saying was treated like him. Now, I'm not saying whether he should or shouldn't have pardoned the Honduran president or whatever, but I'm saying it always goes back to they treated him the way they treated Trump. And I think Trump was treated completely different than a lot of these guys. Not to mention there's narcotics involved, and Terry Murnane said it's all about the oil money with this thing with Maduro, and we're going to get to that. But I think, I don't know why he's bringing up pardoning I know there was a question, but that is a bad. That's a bad example. That's all I'm saying, Jack. It's a bad example.
People are very skeptical here because they're wondering if the stem and the root of the problem was addressed sufficiently, right? In America, there's a large problem with drug overdoses and narcotics, specifically fentanyl being smuggled in. But the problem is a lot of the fentanyl is actually coming from China. So by arresting dictator Nicholas Maduro and bringing him to custody, it was the right decision. But people are speculating, oh, President Trump wants to go take over Venezuela. He wants to run their economy. He wants to profit himself and his various business endeavors that he's been working on. And that's why people are a little bit suspicious. We didn't address the stem and the root of the problem directly, as in we didn't get the biggest drug smugglers in the world. We only got one of them. And then also, we kind of gave one of the other big drug smugglers, being the president of Honduras, a free pass. Was he wrongfully persecuted? Potentially. I mean, Honduras is a very corrupt country, so people are wrongfully persecuted for the wrong things all the time. But the bottom line is he was smuggling drugs, and if that was the case and he was found guilty of it, he needs to face the consequences. And President Trump saw that he didn't, which is why people are starting to speculate that there's skin in the game for him and his administration here.
Yeah, it's just the guy can't avoid, I don't know, scandals around. It's just always the same thing. The thing is because the guy's a narcotic dealer. How do you compare this to being treated unfairly where Trump was just the president and he didn't do anything in his first term. He didn't have narcotics. You can't compare the two. Come on, you got to get a better example than that. But he can pardon anyone he wants, whether anyone likes it or not. I didn't agree. He didn't pardon Eric Adams, but he definitely had his case. I mean, there was a lot of people involved in that. That was, I believe, one of the worst moves he's made, and I think it's going to come back to bite him in the rear end still. But if he wanted to pardon him, he can. That's what the president could do, whether anyone likes it or not. I mean, it was pardons from the past from other presidents, whether it be Obama and Clinton and Biden and the Bushes and Reagan. It's always people getting pardoned. That's the way the law was written. But I think comparing himself to a narco drug lord is not a good look. I'm just saying, I don't know why he would go that route, but
no, it's not a good look because he and Joe Biden, at least theoretically speaking, I mean, America has become a little bit of a free-for-all over the past year. So this statement may sound crazy, but America is supposed to be a politically developed, advanced country where people aren't being captured on the street and there's no drug cartel leaders masquerading as dictators running the show. So that's why that's kind of a weird comparison. And people were kind of turning their eyebrows up what's the point he's trying to make? Also, Trump is not facing any convictions right now because he's the president. And this is a classic example of him kind of distracting attention away from the most important thing and framing himself as the center of attention. You just took into custody a drug cartel leader. Worry about that. Talk about that. Don't relate it back to what you went through previously a couple years ago because it's not relevant to the situation. We heard the same thing with the Jeffrey Epstein files about how Democrats have been hiding these files for years. We were going to demand them. We were going to release them. This was going to be all about transparency. So far, that hasn't happened. And Trump's cop-out as to why that hasn't happened is we've done a better job than the Biden administration talking about them. That's not good enough. At some point, people are going to want to date a woman or a man who is better than their previous girlfriend or boyfriend. And Trump's just not getting the job done right now in that regard.
No, although I don't think it's a bad thing what they did with Maduro, going in there and some are saying abducting the guy. I wouldn't say that, but it wasn't there were no casualties. It wasn't this. It's not. It's just an in and out. Got him in. They went in and got him out. And I mean, look at these numbers: 105,000 drug overdoses in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease. That's in 2023. So, the numbers should be updated. But a lot of this has been going on. You got to hold people accountable. And where the drugs are coming from. So again, I don't disagree with the move, right? Apprehending this guy, but at the same time, he was extradited to New York City. So obviously that caused a huge, I saw what was going on there. So I know there was a press conference. There's protesters. So what do we have on deck here? I know you got a couple of videos.
Yeah, so he was extradited to New York, and a certain somebody who he and Trump were kind of going back and forth, clawing at each other for months while Mamdani was on the campaign trail. Zohran Mamdani felt the need to come out and tell everyone that he opposed President Trump on something, because remember, they're not allowed to be friends and they're not allowed to have a middle ground of commonality anymore. They have to be arguing, right? So here's what Mamdani had to say.
I was briefed by my first deputy mayor, my chief of staff, my chief counsel, the police commissioner, as well as other members of my team. I called the president and spoke with him directly to register my opposition to this act and to make clear that it was an opposition based on being opposed to a pursuit of regime change, a violation of federal and international law, and a desire to see that be consistent each and every day. I registered my opposition. I made it clear, and we left it at that.
Okay, this is where the word salad is starting to get kind of old, because he's talking about how he registered his opposition. He didn't tell anyone at the press conference, not the reporters, not the press secretary that was facilitating the question and answer session. He didn't tell anyone what he said to register his opposition. Then he said Trump was violating international law. He didn't say which laws. Then he said he was opposed to a regime change, but he didn't say why. So it's like every point he made was kind of self-contradictory, and it didn't explain anything. And as a result, people are kind of rolling their eyes and laughing at him, because he's showing that he doesn't have a whole lot of power in terms of trying to pull strings when it comes to international matters. And he's also showing that he's not very knowledgeable about taking foreign dictators into captivity. It was a bad look by him all the way around.
Matt O'Brien said, who the F would take his call, especially the president? And Sleepy Joe, shout out to both Matt O'Brien and Sleepy Joe for being here. He said, low information photos surrounding Kami Dami.
I like it.
What happened here is, first of all, as you saw, there was a whole big inauguration with Mamdani. Because now he's the mayor of New York City. I was one to say, look, we could always bash on this guy. I'm not until some policy or there's some disagreement or something happens where he's in the forefront or he appoints someone that's different. Until there's something. I can't just go out and kill the guy for whatever. I'm not going to go and say, "Oh, Mamdani, blah 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 blah." Give him a chance. Obviously, this is a little bit of a word salad. There's nothing he could do about Maduro being brought into New York City, other than my traffic. And I was there for El Chapo, which was crazy. It was crazy traffic downtown. You couldn't get into the courts. It was like, it was a whole big procession for this guy. Again, he's talking like this is more of a word salad to his people. And going back to his his voters, the low information voters. So, but to go back to when he got inaugurated, he was talking about collectivism and all of that stuff. And there's El Chapo on the screen. I remember when this happened. I was still in the NYPD. But when he's talking about collectivism and all he does is throw a lot of word salads. You cannot. In the world of professional wrestling, as you know, in the WWE, you never lose track of the storyline. And what you don't want to lose track of here is what's really going on. Is these guys talk behind the scenes. I've been telling everyone this over and over again. Trump and Mamdani, they talk. They've already had agreements with things. And, of course, real estate-wise, Trump is a real estate guy. So this whole act it's an act, what you're seeing, that he's throwing a bone to his people. What are you going to call the president and tell him other than great job? You can't tell him anything. It makes no sense what he was saying. But if you go back to his inauguration speech, and I saw him reference rapper I mean, Eric Adams is sitting there. I mean, he's the worst of the worst. And then he did rescind some executive order, and people got that out of hand. But again, in this part, this was a couple of days right after he was anointed as mayor. And I saw the press conference there, and he's just throwing word salads. He's got to get his footing as the mayor, whether you like the guy or not. Listen, I'm always one to give the guy a chance before, like, just let's see what happens here. He was a press conference today. I'm going to get to that with the soccer mom and Governor Hochul. What the hell was that about, showing up at a crime stat press conference? But, you know, he's just posturing for his people. That's how I saw it. It's best, like you said, it's a word salad. And other than saying, Mr. President, what a great job, what can you do? I don't want him in New York. I don't know what else he could have told them, you know?
The biggest question that I was asking as I was listening to the press conference is, what is Mamdani hoping to gain out of making this statement? He certainly isn't endearing himself to the Venezuelan-American constituents that live in his city, because most of them were celebrating Maduro being taken into captivity. So that clearly wasn't it, right? I have to believe that he and some of the other bigwigs in the Democratic Party now, be it Bernie Sanders or AOC,
this guy, Bernie Sanders,
they needed to collaborate and have a bone to pick with President Trump. And listen, if you don't agree with something that President Trump says or does, that's totally fine. It's a developed country. We have the First Amendment for a reason. But, you know, this coalition of he does not have the constitutional authority, it's unfair, we shouldn't be funding a foreign war, blah, 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 all of this nonsense. It really didn't have an end goal or an objective in mind. And that's the biggest problem. It's just, this was all performative theatrics to appease the far left leaning voters that voted for them in the general election back in November, and now are questioning whether or not they truly don't like President Trump, because let's all admit there was a little bit of a bromance in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, right? That was unexpected. So yeah, Democrats are just commending this decision for the sake of commending it, and they really don't actually take objection to it at all. That's my final analysis here.
Yeah, and I see PBE 777 said Venezuelan citizens are celebrating in the streets, yet libs in America are against the dictator being removed. Make it make sense. I agree. A lot of Venezuelans they're living in poverty over there, but I don't know. I mean, there's an agenda here, as you know, and Special Hagen, who's here, and here's some of it. We're going to get to this in a second. There's a lot of this going on. There's protesters. Special Hagen says, we continue to have a mayor that doesn't have a national security clearance. As such, he didn't have any knowledge of the operation beforehand. That is true. We have learned that Mr. Mamdani does not have national security clearance. And I don't know if that's a technicality or that's because he's just became the mayor. But that just means now someone in the police department has to brief him every day, whether it be the police commissioner or whoever has access. Because as we know, not even, a year ago, everybody in the police department, including the mayor, didn't have national security clearance either.
No, this is a great point made by Special Hagen, because listen, on the campaign trail, Mamdani could talk about anything and everything, from international law and policy to the subway system. He could discuss it all, especially being in a city with a ton of immigrant populations. But now that he's actually in office in City Hall as the mayor of New York City, he's going to start to learn that he has very limited control. You can't just call the president in Washington and say, oh, you're not allowed to go capture that dictator in Venezuela. You're not allowed to go tell Governor Kathy Hochul that she has to raise taxes to fund your free bus service proposal. Mamdani, going forward, you're going to have to pick your fights and your battles, because if you try and start wars with everyone, it's not going to end well for you. You're going to end up forming a lot of battles with people, and you're going to have trouble forming allegiances with those that can help you in the political world. So this is where Mamdani has to be very calculated in terms of how he acts going forward.
Yeah. And I like this one. Hunter NY said, no casualties or damage to aircraft. The Venezuelan military wasn't fighting, which is a good thing. That's kind of what you want. But you showed a video, and I want how many videos you have. And this is, I saw Freedom News .tv. I think it was Aaliyah Scootercaster. Listen, these protesters going back and forth now, because obviously they're at the courthouse. I don't know what this is going to cost the NYPD in New York City, all this stuff. But you have to understand that the same and these are people from Venezuela that are saying, like, we want this. This is great. And then you have see the ones on the other side there, all these protesters. And if you could actually circle the people's faces, you will see that they were there for Occupy Wall Street. They were there for Black Lives Matter. They were there for Free Palestine. And now they're there for Venezuela. And I think they were also there for the El Chapo stuff. It's the same people. So who are the organizers of this? Because somebody's organizing this. And that seems to be the issue that nobody wants to, I don't know, address, get on top of. But this was going on for days. I think they're down there as we speak. It's the same people, man. It's always the same crowd of people that are protesting or rioting, whatever you want to call it, against whatever it is. And listen, I'm for people protesting, but it's the same people. You know, Hunter and one said crisis actors. Some of them are that. Why are the same people always doing? And then look, there it is, community affairs. And we got to get in the middle of these people.
Why is community affairs at these protests? Aren't they supposed to be handing out lollipops?
Yeah, well, no, community affairs is supposed to be like a peacemaker. They like the peacemakers of everything. They're like the neighborhood cops. They know the area and they go to all these things. But turn around and look. It's the same people that are constantly marching up. It's the same people all the time. It is nothing organic about that, you know? And why did NYPD has to deal with this nonsense in New York City? And it cost a lot of money. It cost a lot of money to have it, but it's the same people all the time. If this was organic, like, you know, the 60s and the 70s, it's different than this. You know, I keep pointing to the same thing as I just see it over and over again.
And everything that took place in Venezuela at a helipad with a helicopter that was highly protected, and up in Newburgh when he was flown into New York State. So, like, what type of influence are you looking to have on the situation by protesting? Venezuelans, you want to go out and celebrate and have a good time and show off nationalism a little bit in a very civil and upbeat type of way? Be my guest. Go ahead. Do it all day long. People did that, and it was very civil, and no one got hurt and all that stuff. But once the hostility levels start to raise, that's when you feel like there's going to be a violent encounter. And once that happens, there's no going back. What does that look like? Someone pulls out a gun. Someone pulls out a knife. A fight starts. People start punching each other. Then it gets real ugly to the point where everyone's asking the question of, why are we even here fighting about something taking place in another country? It's a very weird dilemma. Perhaps New Yorkers' New Year's resolution should be to stop fighting over foreign conflicts in their own city in 2026. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the scary part here, people are scared of, and PBE 777 said none of this is about Venezuela. This is about TDS and attacking the president, immediately licensing the politicians hate you. Politicians do seem to hate the people, unless you're paying. But I think people are worried about, especially like my friend Owen Schroyer, nobody wants regime change. It's one thing to help a country, but the same thing happened in Syria. The same thing happened in Lebanon. So we don't want to get far, like, you know what I mean? America does not want to fund another regime change. That's what people voted against. So going forward, what exactly does the president want to do with Venezuela other than help them? Obviously, I think they elected another president. The Venezuelans apparently don't like them.
Delcy Rodriguez is being sworn in currently.
She's being sworn in, but some of the Venezuelans don't like her. I don't know. I don't know the exact inside baseball with everything in Venezuela. But as far as the American side goes, which is the side I really care about here, is you want to help them, I guess, get on their feet, but you do not want a regime change. We're not in the regime change business, which is a Trump motto. This is what when we voted for him, I remember all these years, you know, when he was first running, he always rallied against Bush and the regime change in Iraq and all these other countries that we got involved with. So again, this cannot be a regime change. If it's one thing to get this guy, you know, he should have been indicted years ago because they already brought charges. So then that's one thing. But to go into a country and try to take it over or whatever the case is, we don't want that. And I guess this will now open up the import-export business of oil for this country as well. I think that'll be.
Well, that was part of the condition of Delcy Rodriguez taking over for Maduro. Trump wanted oil to be flowing into this country freely, but he also wanted her to distance herself from Iran and Cuba and other countries that the United States has been in conflict with in the past. So this could be on the surface an example of the U.S. taking a dictator away from a country and trying to put a new one in so they can kind of operate on their own agenda. There is some speculation that that is the case, and I think there's definitely a factual basis for that claim. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the new leader. I don't think that things are going to be a whole lot different because Venezuela is a very morally corrupt country.
Yeah.
She was also one other point in regards to that. Rodriguez was also Maduro's vice president for 4 or 5 years too. So she literally comes from his administration. For those NYPD folks out there, it was similar to when John Shell took over for Jeffrey Madry. You didn't really get anything different.
That's funny. That's funny.
That's a fair analogy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There is another video though, because I think there's a comparison between the perp walk or the walk of Maduro and Mangione. So this is, I guess you got to play this.
Yeah, let's take a look at this.
Yeah, I think the music is a killer on this. But I could look at this. Yeah, just that. It's you see. This is funny. Look at the difference between these two guys getting walked out.
Put it in the Louvre right next to the Mona Lisa, huh?
Yeah.
It's totally crazy.
I can't forget that other one on the bottom. I'm sorry. I look at the difference, and remember that the top part has a lot of DEA, right? The DEA was there. There's a lot of federal, agents there. What is that? Look at this.
So if you asked an ignorant observer to identify which person killed the CEO of a prominent company in America and which person was the dictator of a highly corrupt country, I don't think anyone would think that Mangione was, that the roles were reversed here. Everyone would think that Mangione was the dictator and that Maduro was Mangione, in other words.
Yeah, that's essentially what we're seeing. And look, you have FBI, all these, big guys with Mangione. And, just to let you know, this helicopter ride cost a lot of money to New York City taxpayers. But the person you really needed that with, what they didn't really do it, I mean, they did it professionally, was Maduro. And to see that thing, that's, I don't know.
So let me ask you this question, Sal, because I think this is a factor at play here. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Mangione was brought back to New York from Altoona, Pennsylvania. It was more of an American-only case. National storyline, manhunt all over the country for him. But it was only kind of transportation within the country and within the Northeast region, right? He only came from Pennsylvania. Maduro comes from another country. He's flown in on a huge jet to Newburgh. Then he's taken from Newburgh to New York City. Do you think that kind of contributed to the differing circumstances in terms of them being brought back?
Well, the way they did it? Well, I can tell you the way they did Mangione, they could have drove and picked him up with a car the way they've done a million other times. And for decades, with Mangione, it was more of the optics. There were people taking pictures. right? Maduro you didn't see that. It was very, very professional the way they did him. Especially the way they did it is because you had the DEA. They're the ones that brought him in. Unlike the NYPD, which was, I believe, posturing for, first of all, the soccer mom, secondarily for Eric Adams, who thought he had a chance at being reelected. Whoever else wants to be in a photo op for the New York City Police Department, which I don't understand why you would even care about that. But you understand that the Mangione perp walk cost a lot more money than the Maduro one, where it was minimal manpower and it was done completely, very, almost, they want to do things almost discreetly, versus the NYPD that had I don't know, there was a bunch of people there for this one guy in shackles and handcuffs who you should have just picked up in a car.
So the NYPD, the way I interpreted it, and you would probably speak more about this having been within the organization, this was their perpetrator, Mangione, and they wanted to make a statement about how they were the ones who brought him back to New York City. Even if it was the Altoona Police Department who apprehended him in that McDonald's while he was eating hash browns, the NYPD wanted to somehow take credit for it. And part of that was doing a perp walk where there were a lot of pictures with Eric Adams and the NYPD behind him. Also, one of the biggest differences between Maduro and Mangione, when Maduro was captured, we were getting constant updates. We saw the airstrikes in Venezuela. We saw him wearing those glasses and those headphones. We saw him being brought in on the jet. We saw the perp walk. We saw everyone waiting outside. With Mangione, we saw almost none of those things. We got helicopter aerial views of him driving on the highway, but we didn't see his face again after he was taken out of the McDonald's until he was being perp walked. So there was a lot more of a prideful aspect related to the apprehension of Mangione than there was of Maduro. That's part of the reason that Mangione's perp walk was so much more ceremonious.
Yep. And Marlon Bethel agrees. You said, yes, it was unusual. That it was highly bizarre. I'm just saying that to see why that even happened, the way they handled this, remember, and it costs money. That's all I'm going to try to tell people and reiterate. New York City taxpayers and, federally, you'll pay for this, for the perp walks. It always works that way. So you need to really, ask questions on why that Mangione perp walk went down the way it did, with cameras, and they're making a spectacle out of it. And here's Maduro, who's a much more important person you're bringing in, who's in charge of another country. Yeah. He's the president of another country. And this guy was brought in, and we don't have the 60, 70, whatever it is, how many guys there surrounding him to walk, which is ridiculous when you have shackles and handcuffs and can't go anywhere. Again, this is how you properly do things, and then there's the way you don't properly do things, which was what they did with Mangione.
Yeah, and I mean, Mangione also is being tried in New York City. He's having a very public trial. Maduro, there's been, some people have said that he should be tried in Miami, as we talked about. Other people say that it should be the Southern District of New York, which is where he should be tried. But the point here is Mangione's situation has unfolded very publicly ever since he was apprehended in Altoona, whether it be the people standing outside the courthouse. And it's more of a hot topic issue of debate to the conditions surrounding his murder of Brian Thompson, right? Healthcare in this country and the affordability surrounding it is a big problem. And as such, there's no justification for ever taking out a gun and shooting someone in plain sight. But people are kind of piping up Mangione in some ways as a hero because he took out someone who they felt like was responsible for a lot of the medical fraud in this country, whereas Maduro was only causing harm. So that's kind of important to define contrast between the motives of their actions as well.
Sleepy Joe said that Maduro's a big guy, 6'3". Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah, he is a really big guy, and
he's a twig.
The weirdest thing about his apprehension is that there's really no guarantee that anything that the U.S. wants in regards to the relationship with Venezuela are going to happen under this new regime. Will Venezuela stop selling oil to competitors of the United States? Probably not. Will they exclusively sell it to the United States at a fair price? Probably not. Will a corrupt third world country that had a drug cartel leader previously running it for 5 years have fair elections? Come on, man. Like, we all know the answer to these questions. So, I mean, like, this was the right decision no matter how you look at it, because he was causing a ton of harm to the people in Venezuela and their families. But I'm really going to stop short of saying that things are going to get better under this new regime, because I think it's going to be just more of the status quo, just like Mamdani taking over for Eric Adams. Just because there's a new lead singer in the band doesn't mean the music is going to sound any different. I
agree. You know, that's what you're going to see with this. Hey, 92 Charlie. Good afternoon, Sal. Had no idea the show already started. yeah. Sorry, we started at 12:05 today, and going forward, we'll be at 11:05, and we're going to be on Mondays and Thursdays. So that'll be a little bit of a slight change, as we're spicing things up, so to speak. But yeah. So another thing that occurred is I believe we have someone that passed away, right? LaMalfa. I think he's a congressman in California. So this just happened like within the last 2 hours. People got wind of this. So you know, he's part of the GOP. He's in California. He's 65 years old, and he was the water and forestry issues. I think he was on a commission or a committee as well, and unfortunately, he passed away. So you know, kudos. Yeah, rest in peace, Doug LaMalfa, who now I believe they're going to have a special election. Okay, and there's Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're going to have a special election now. So, and they have a primary, I believe, in June. So I don't know if they want to make it one thing, because technically speaking, now you're one congressman short for the Republicans on all the votes until all of this gets resolved. So there's another wrench thrown into the wheels of Congress, you know?
Yeah, correct. And also kind of another point to make about this whole developing situation is his district is all the way up in the northern part of the state where the countryside is and the cows are, and it's more like blue collar farmers. I don't think a lot of people really think that there is that part of California, but yes, that is a very conservative district in the northern part of the state. And there's a lot of questions about whether a Democrat or a Republican is going to win his seat in the current climate that we're living in. Remember, I mean, there's anger amongst Republicans right now that the House could be flipping in 2026. But if there are enough seats that are open in the short term, MTG's seat, his seat, that flip blue, then things could start to move along a whole lot quicker. So that's why that developing storyline is very important. He had a very interesting agenda in the first district in California, and whoever takes over his seat is going to have a very distinctly different one, just because he really understood the farmers in that region and cared more about building up the U.S. economy through agriculture and land grants, stuff of that nature. He was 65 years old, so we're probably going to be getting some younger blood in there as well.
Yeah, I think, though, still, it's just important as far as the GOP goes. This seat needs to remain in the GOP, and the fact that now you're short one vote might become a problem. I'm just saying it might become a problem because remember, you all have a limited amount of votes. So, and 65 is young. I mean, Samantha Buccione says it is young. It is young. I feel that you know, my heart goes out to someone just passed away like that. But now, if you look at it, there's going to be a large, especially California, as you know, they have their own issues, right? Especially the way they run. But Newsom, now, I don't know how they're going to handle the special. If they're going to have a special election or wait for the primary, because you're looking at November would be when the seat either goes one way or the other. But who's going to be in that seat from now till then? I don't know how he's going to do it. That's going to be a question now for California, and what if California voters want him to do it that way, which is another problem. Sleepy Joe said GOP plays extra poll.
So Lamalfa was probably one of the more conservative politicians to ever come out of the state of California. Remember when he was a state senator a couple years ago, he famously opposed same-sex marriage, which is probably one of the most popular romantic legislative bills in the state of California, right? So he had very arc conservative values, which are likely going to be replaced in this current climate. And I'm going to predict that that seat is ultimately taken over by a Democrat who's probably more moderate leaning in the center of the aisle, right? Someone who takes donations from special interest groups and moseys with billionaires, but also knows how to cater to the left-leaning constituency bases from a very ideologically sound place, right? Same-sex marriage, equality, all that good stuff, right? Because that's how you appeal to voters in today's day and age.
And I like this comment from PBE 777, who's really been on fire today. California is exactly like New York, a red state, but 3 cities have most of the population, and those 3 cities are deep blue. All those 3 cities go, so does, as those 3 cities go, so does the state. And unfortunately, I believe that is true in California just as much as in New York. New York City dominates, the 5 boroughs dominates the state voting wise, and that's why you're having these issues. But there was 2 things I want to get to before we get out of here. Number one, today there was a press conference at One Police Plaza, and this is speaking of now we're going to get into a little bit of New York City NYPD here, because there was a press conference this morning, not just before we came on. The soccer mom was there with the chief of department, Michael LePetri, who I understand just sits in his office all day and just signs whatever they put in front of him. He has no idea what's going on. But they had a press conference with Mayor Mamdani and Kathy Hochul's the governor. What the hell she's doing there, I don't know, because I haven't seen her at other press conferences. See, and here they're having a press conference about crime, the crime numbers, the crime stats. So I don't know if you want to play a little bit of what Mamdani is saying here. Let's see what he had to say.
Yeah, this was an interesting answer when he was asked about enforcing the law when it comes to quality of life related issues. And pay attention to Tisch's reaction too.
The commissioner said the 2 of us are in constant communication. And what New Yorkers deserve and what we are fully aligned on is the fact that we need to see genuine public safety across the city. And that is something that is felt when New Yorkers can walk through their neighborhood without fear or without concern. That is something that is felt when they see a city government that is addressing
Look at Hochul.
that actually underpins the misdemeanors and the minor crimes that we're speaking of. And that is going to be the focus not only of myself, but also of my entire city government.
But you just had to look at that reaction of these 2. If you listen to the whole press conference now and you hear the soccer mom tell you how this is down and that's down, and we had everything's always historic, yet we understand that what they're declassifying like felonies to misdemeanor, and there's certain precincts, and I'll get to those. Transit 30, 32, the 6th precinct, the 106 precinct. There's numerous places that we could just look at, and I've already highlighted on this show, and so have the other guys on Finance and Filtered, how they've manipulated these stats. 92 Charlie says the new Three Stooges show. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, take your pick. But the crime stats, she's saying that, and then she admits that I believe, they've had a record high in like, I don't know if it's rapes or grand larcenies, but in one of those, she was like, oh, well, these numbers are higher. But the way they're going about this, if for me, that there's tension between the mayor, Mamdani, and the soccer mom, because he doesn't want her there clearly, because she represents the failed Eric Adams administration, which at the end, she was either joking or being serious. I believe you're the 4th mayor I've worked for. There was Bloomberg. She was talking, and then she's like, yeah, I think you're the 4th mayor I worked for. But the problem was that the last mayor had 4 police commissioners, each one being worse than the last one. And one of them that was only there for like 2 seconds and was basically, they took a crap on him. So, you would have to get rid of this entire stench in order to be serious. Well, I don't know how serious Mamdani is because he keeps her around. So then he signed an executive order that had the first deputy mayor is who the police commissioner and the fire commissioner would be reporting to. Now, in years past, that's the way it was. It was only under Eric Adams that he made it that the deputy commissioner of public safety, which was a recreated position, would now have to field, the police commissioner and the concerns of the police. That was all Eric Adams. So prior to Eric Adams, that was not the way it went. It was always a first deputy mayor. But of course, now the mayor always gets briefed by the police commissioner or someone in the police department. So there was a lot of mishigas over that, which is BS, because I can tell you, the mayor always has a direct line of police commissioner and always knows what's going on with the police department. If he or she chooses, that's what they want. But normally, a report to the first deputy mayor. It was only under the last 4 years, you had the deputy mayor of public safety, the epically corrupt Phil Banks, may I add, later on, Kaz Daughtry, and that's why you had what we had. But it wasn't that it's any like gotcha or we're going to pull the wool over your eyes. So then they hear this press conference again, unless the soccer mom, right? Why does she need her friend Kathy Hochul there by her side for a press conference that's about crime stats in New York City with your new mayor? She's been there forever. Michael LePetri, who's too busy in his office signing papers, doesn't know what's going on. And then the governor, she was never there when Eric Adams was giving his crime stat press conferences at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to get to an incident that happened, but what is your take on that? I mean, I find it bizarre that the governor is there, other than reassuring the soccer mom's feelings that, oh, you're going to be the police commissioner because I have my own election in June and July. I got to win my primary. That's what's going on with Kathy Hochul. This is how I see it.
Just look at Kathy Hochul in this photo. She looks like Zohran Mamdani's angry mother, because Mamdani got caught playing video games too late one night and woke up at 6 a.m. for school and complained about being tired because he had to go into parent-teacher conferences with his mother. I mean, that's what this photo looks like in a nutshell. To your point, though, you talk about Kathy Hochul almost never making an appearance in Manhattan when Eric Adams was the mayor.
No.
Except when Brad Lander got arrested for antagonizing ICE agents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
One-time exception that was made. But the reason why Hochul and Tisch and Michael LePetri and all of these other people are standing behind Mamdani in press conferences is because this is totally a collaborative and unified effort by all parties, right? We all know that Mamdani has no idea what he's doing legislatively speaking. So Kathy Hochul is going to be calling all of the shots from Albany. Just listening to the tone of the press conference today, that was painfully obvious. One of the reporters asked Mamdani about his new $1 billion Department for Community Safety, and Governor Kathy Hochul quickly chimed in, responded, and said, no, we're just going to have a little bit more collaboration, between the police department and social workers to try and smooth things over a little bit more. So don't expect Mamdani to be making any decisions when it comes to stuff at the state level, because Hochul is a seasoned veteran, having done this for a few years as governor, lieutenant governor, congresswoman in Washington when Terry Pagula helped get her elected. So she has way more power and pull than him. Mamdani is just going to be a figurehead that helps people vote for him, helps get him in office, and then everyone's going to push him around and pull the strings from the top. Just look at the guy's previous track record. He did just about nothing as an assemblyman in Albany, and none of his bills that he sponsored were related to any of his policy proposals on the campaign trail. So this is to be expected on every single level, with Hochul serving as the soccer mom supervisor, to make a similar comparison.
Essentially, yeah. And, you had to see this from right here from PBE77. So she said, why do we have a deputy mayor of public safety and a police commissioner? Isn't that redundant? And the chief of police, can someone answer that question, please? So I'm gonna best explain this to you. So the deputy mayor of public safety is someone that oversees, originally that's what was written by Eric Adams when he was the mayor. That position oversees, basically is the buffer between the mayor and the agency. So they oversaw like 6 agencies: sanitation, the fire department, the NYPD.
Corrections.
So yeah, corrections. And this is who those commissioners could either collaborate with or in the end, have to answer to the deputy mayor of public safety. This is a made-up position. It didn't exist for a while. It was on the books. They brought it back, but that's what that role is. The police commissioner, obviously, this person is responsible for the entire the entire police department. Everything that goes on has to go through the police commissioner, has to get their signature, and the chief of police, I guess the chief of department, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations, especially for those uniform members of service. Obviously, the police department has civilians. So overall, the police commissioner sees everything, has to approve everything, and the chief of department runs it day-to-day operations. Everything flows through that office. Personnel moves, everything needs their approval before it gets to the police commissioner, who sees everything. And I mean, even the political spectrum of things. If you're going to lobby for changes, you can send the police commissioner. It doesn't have to be the mayor. The police commissioner will go to Albany and they can lobby for changes they want in laws, or if the police department needs money. That's the role of the police commissioner. They hand out discipline. They have a final say on discipline. They could agree or disagree, right? But that's the role of the police commissioner, what the differences between everything. But this guy brought in a deputy mayor of public safety because Banks and then eventually Kazdordri have to be the ones saying they run the show, even though they kind of all did at the same time at various different levels and different times in the administration. So this is just a little bit of a return to decorum and the way things are supposed to be. I guess that's the best way for me to describe it, with who does what, where, and why.
But there's no definitive guidelines about why we need a deputy mayor for public safety, what prompted the position to be created, or, as Special Hagan correctly points out, brought back. Mm-hmm. And it as such, now we're all confused. Like, Commissioner Tisch is going to have supervision, which he obviously needs, but is Mamdani just hiring someone to run public safety and he's going to put that thing on autopilot and go run away until there's a shooting, a stabbing, or a hot topic issue? I mean, there's very little transparency right now in City Hall, and there was almost no transparency under Eric Adams about why we needed a deputy mayor for public safety, or what the deputy mayor for public safety was even doing, right? Also, some of the agencies that the deputy mayor for public safety oversaw didn't necessarily fit within public safety. Corrections is a safety service, but it's not necessarily public safety because jails are housed privately. That's where people are brought when they're already detained, right? So, I mean, there's no parameters, and the bottom line is we're paying someone about $275,000 in salary for this role. So if we're going to do that, we need to justify it by saying this is what their responsibilities are going to be. Otherwise, we should be outsourcing it and having a couple of people run a department for community safety, for example, because that's a much more realistic way of governance in a manner that's not having confusion and convolution in terms of what people are responsible for. Yeah.
It's funny is now PBE7 says, Sal, what you describe sounds like cronyism and structural corruption. There should be a police commissioner or a police chief, not both. And she should report directly to the mayor. I agree with you, but they have had this system in place for so long. The deputy mayor, though, that was something like Special Hagan correctly pointed out, David Dinkins had put in and then brought back by the guy who thinks he was David Dinkins, Eric Adams, and such a prominent role because it wasn't so prominent before. So, yeah, it is. It is structural corruption and it is cronyism, which it runs rampant in the police department. It doesn't matter who the mayor is. It's been running rampant forever. There's no checks and balances. There should be. But even if there are, as you've seen, like Group 1 and Internal Affairs, where they have Christmas tree and they're going on witch hunts and they target people and they think it's funny and they have it behind their door. So, I mean, this is, and it's not. That's going to be a legal problem, may I add. But these are things that matter to the public should know, and then challenge either the mayor's office or the police, the NYPD, to say, we need change here. I don't know how it's going to get done. Who do we speak to? Because the deputy mayor, I understand that, but you are correct. I just want to give here, Annette says, good afternoon, Sal and Jack. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, too.
Happy New Year, baby. 2026. Upward and onward.
Michael M says, good luck, Sal. Change is always good. Unconfirmed rumor has it others may not be happy. But I addressed that in the beginning of the show. There are no problems. And, of course, Frankie Palaguacci, a great friend to the show. There's your first super chat for the Sal Greco Show now on the Sal Greco channel. Says, crime is not down. What's down are the NYPD's hiring standards. Great show, and God bless you, Sal. God bless you, Frankie, for the $9.99, which is going to be going to get some cafecito after this. Let me see this one. I want to address one other thing. Here, Leo Fairpini said Adams wanted Banks as police commissioner, but because of his ethical issues, he couldn't appoint him. Won't pass FBI background check, so he became deputy mayor of public safety to run the NYPD. You would be correct in that he cannot be the police commissioner because of he was an unindicted co-conspirator. The whole thing was made up. You have this nailed down perfect, and that's why they try to circumvent the system. And then, of course, you had the mayoral aide, which worked for the Economic Development Corporation, Tim Pearson, which was a role that was originally for Terrence Monahan when he retired. It's so many things and how it was run. And it's just, it really boiled, and it really took a toll on rank and file, especially in the New York City Police Department. And Michael M. says, Giuliani, Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Rudy Washington, oversaw NYPD FDNY corrections. That is correct. Hans is asking, did Kaz have a walkout today?
No, he didn't have a walkout today, but that's because he's heading back to precinct life, right? 110th or 107th Precinct Detective Squad is where he was.
But he's supposed to be retired on the 8th, right? Officially. So that is
2 more
why
days.
That the entire thing was done as a it's a formality. And they wanted to see who would say what online. Obviously, you saw, before I get to this last thing, you saw someone, we don't name this person, and he's hobbling around on a bad ankle, and he's overweight, and he takes all these, look, I don't like to play histrionics like this person does, but you notice that this person has a trigger when it comes to mentioning Kaz Daughtry. Every couple of days, you're going to see him post something about either myself or Eric Dim, or John McCarry. The guy's obsessed. He wants to be a troll. He makes $30,000 a month, and he's worried about 3 people. There's something seriously wrong with that guy. And look, in my opinion, like I said it. I did a show, Crowdsource the Truth, with Jason Goodman. When you kill someone, shoot someone in the back, you're gonna have demons because you know that you didn't face the music for that. So they drink all their sorrows away until you're going to read someday the part of what you think is probably going to happen in the future. I don't pay attention to this guy. I don't care about his trolls. The guy was a failure in life, and he was never held accountable for his actions. But, whether it's this life or the next, you will be held accountable. It doesn't, you don't escape accountability just because, you pass away. So that's how I see things. And, they're going to keep going on and on about things. And I have a jacket. Let me tell you something. If you have a jacket, if you have an NYPD jacket of someone, but you're no longer part of that, that's a felony, buddy. And if anyone helped you with that and finding out how the whole thing works, it's almost impossible. You have social security numbers and your emergency contact. All that stuff is not in that jacket. It's your reference number. But even if you were, that would mean, if you have that would mean the chief of personnel, and there's 5 other people that see this, 7 other people would be involved in this. And that is not the case. So there's a lot of trolling and a lot of posturing. I don't know what this person's problem is. He's on Newsmax. He's on Fox. He looks hungover. I don't know what their problem is.
Hungover after New Year's.
Really
Definitely.
hungover. And it's a disgrace by a news network to not vet people. And we don't have a problem with that or who you put on air. But that's as close as I have nothing to say about anything. Nothing he says is a value or truthful or anything. He's a big blowhard who was a disgrace his whole career. He killed someone on top of it, never held accountable, didn't pay his taxes. I mean, you could go on and on and on. his tax season. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
It's all sizzle, no steak with that guy. Like, if he's really feeling truly confident about himself and what he's doing, why is he drunkenly picking fights? And not just drunkenly. I mean, he's drinking to the point of obliteration 4 nights a week. It's funny because revisionist history would tell you otherwise, but a couple months ago, before this guy retired, he was talking about all he was going to be doing in retirement, how he was going to help people. When I called him out on it once, he said,
that's just funny that he's not going to help anybody.
yeah, his direct quote to me in my DMs was, "It's a marathon, not a sprint. See you at the finish line." Really still don't know what that means, because aside from fighting with people on social media and doing a 3-minute guest spot on various media networks that he's not getting paid a dime for, and he's also lying in all of those spots about both what he did and what he's doing to help the department. What is he doing that's giving him satisfaction in life? So, I mean, I'm challenging said individual in 2026 to finally find some meaning outside of picking fights with people and living this pretend life on social media and on television, where they're only inviting you back because you have the title former NYPD chief of department. Without that, or if they did 5 minutes of research, which they don't have time to do, they would clearly realize that you're a fraud.
I agree. I don't know what his problem is. I really don't. Michael M. even said he's got problems. Joyce's Tavern, I guess he's tweeting out of there. See, he only tweets during business hours of Joyce's Tavern. It seems to be a pattern. I could even boil it down to that. But when you have demons, man, that's what it is. You really should seek help, I think. But
you can't ever escape those. You can't ever escape the demons living inside your head, especially when you're not doing anything to try and kick them out. If you're drinking alcohol 4 nights a week, if you're fighting the same people, you're not actively changing anything about your life. So you're going to still live with those demons.
Yeah, and
to a certain degree, he kind of like we all remind him that those demons exist, even though he has people from the department blowing him and talking about how great he was. And he has $30,000 to go fly on private jets and sit in the first row at Cowboys games in Dallas and do pretty much anything he wants to do as a human being. It's still not good enough because he's insecure as a human being at the end of the day.
And like I said, for me, I mean, I don't know if he's noticed or through his numerous other accounts. Guy even has other made-up accounts. I don't answer you. I don't care. And nobody else does either, other than you're giving a lot of people a lot of material to laugh at you about. There's other things that you've done, like you were doing, and people know about. You're only drawing attention to yourself. And I don't understand why someone would do that. But if you want to keep doing that, it's on you. You got serious, deep-rooted issues, and it goes beyond being a troll. But again, you will be held accountable, especially first in court, and then when you meet your maker. Because I don't know what else to say. It's like, Jason says, Sal, you notice he keeps coming after your ponytail. Yeah. When I was first of all, out of everyone that he discusses all the time, I'm the one guy that was actually in a vehicle with him. I met his wife. There's a lot of things I could say. The guy was always obsessed with ponytails. I don't know why, but judging from his own set of, his own hair, I understand why. He doesn't have much of it. So
he still hasn't given me a nickname, though. I was hoping to be called Danny Zuko because I have a little bit of the grease haircut going on. No, he didn't want to compliment me like that, I guess.
Danny
oh well.
Well, I got this. There's one last thing I was going to touch up on. So just to give you a pretext to this, my buddy, I know this place because I went there as a cop. So does the 7th Precinct. A lot of people do. Pizzeria is called Alfonso's Pizzeria, 525 Grand Street. That's been there for almost 40 years, since 1989. A pillar of the community. The other day, we have someone who's known in a community. Whether you want to call him an EDP, he's known. He's got a rap sheet. Decides to go into his restaurant, his pizzeria, and let's put this up on the screen. What this individual did. Because as you can see, this individual, I don't know what they're doing there, jumps the counter. right to the cash register, right? There's a pizza man. Tell him, what are you trying to do? He's trying to go in there. Look, he won't stop. Still going, having a discussion with him, pointing at people. There's I believe a female that is working here, and there's a second part to this because there's a conversation going on, and he spits on a female that works there. This is in the 7th precinct, 525 Grand Street, at a pizzeria that's been known in the neighborhood for almost 40 years. And this nut job just walks in and can do whatever he wants, apparently. But that's not all, because obviously then they went to the 7th precinct to file a report. And what do you think this report would be filed as? Because if you said attempted petty larceny, you would be correct. But it's actually a burglary. And this is what happens in real time in the New York City Police Department. First of all, this video should have been downloaded. They have an excuse that the file is too big. They don't want to take a felony because then let's show on the screen their own numbers there in the 7th precinct. Obviously, these are wrong numbers. There's the captain, Jason Everett, captain of 7th precinct, and likes to downgrade crime. This is in real time, folks. Okay, and here you go. Remember that happened on Sunday. This says 1-4, right? I don't see burglary. You would have had a number 3, but you see the numbers there. Oh, crime is down 28 days, 10%. It's up 33% year to date, and the 2-year change is 33%. And right there, you have them downgrading a crime. Now they could try to upgrade this, but this just shows you police officers take a report, but have to answer to a sergeant or lieutenant. Obviously, they don't want to ruffle feathers because you know that this person on top, the captain, going all the way to the Manhattan South Borough commander and going up the chain to chief of patrol, then a chief of department, and ultimately the soccer mom who likes to keep things down, right? Crime down. And as Eric Sanders points out, burglary in the 3rd degree and attempted petty larceny. Why does it not say burglary? I don't know. So what are your thoughts on looking at that, Jack? Because everything we've been saying in real time is true right in front of your eyes. That's the official video that the police department should have. That's from the restaurant showing you an attempted burglary. It's a burglary in the 3rd degree. And the guy spit on someone too while he's at it. But it's only a petty larceny and a harassment.
Well, it certainly doesn't pass the smell test, that's for sure, because if a burglary is happening and it's not reported and I'm a resident of that community and I hear about the event and I'm now being extra cautious walking around, but then I go to the community safety meeting and I don't hear anything about it, then I start to question what's actually going on in my neighborhood. Also, this is a very noteworthy part of the CompStat numbers as it pertains to this precinct as well. 7th precinct, lower Manhattan, lower East Side, pretty nice affluent area for the most part. When you look at the 2-year change that's taken place, crime is up 33.33%. And listen, 16 years is never like something you should look at as a resident of a community for a short period of time, but a 71% increase over the last 16 years for an area that's gentrifying with property values going up, it's a bad look all the way around. What needs to happen here is there needs to be more transparency with residents. You need to tell us when crimes are happening. We need to be alerted about it, and then they need to be documented and reported. No one's going to crush the captain or whoever's running the precinct if they report crimes. Crimes happen. It's not their fault that there's a burglary or there's some lunatic walking around with a gun. We're not going to blame it on them. We're not going to hold it against them. But at the end of the day, they're clearly prioritizing personal and professional growth and development over the safety of the community, which is what's particularly concerning here.
Yeah, and I say this. When you do see this is like something we always knew in the NYPD. Because look, I know the first thing you're going to say is the police officer took the report. They're told by their supervisors that you can't be. I don't know why anybody is, other than filing something on a piece of paper. It is what it is. You shouldn't be trying to change anything. But the sergeants and lieutenants, and they're the ones who are going to get in trouble. It's never the commanding officer. We know that the commanding officer, though, behind the scenes is saying, you're going to do X, Y, and Z or else. Because there's so many different ways you could hurt someone without making it official and, you know, them saying that you're targeting them, all this kind of stuff. But this is what happens in real time. So, like, you know, someone was saying, I believe Hans was saying this here. He's got a perfect comment. That's every petty larceny in the store when an employee tried to stop it and gets assaulted. It's a manipulation of the reporting system. 100%. We're trying to tell you that this is a thing that's not only been going on from now, it's been going on forever. But the person that is benefiting from this right now is the soccer mom, who just had a press conference telling you crime is down. Of course, when you say a burglary is just an attempted petty larceny, that's great. Oh, and you spit on someone too is just harassment. You know, this is what I'm talking about. And that's in real time. That happened not even 72 hours ago. And yet that's the answer from the soccer mom. But crime is down. You know, clearly this individual is disturbed. What happened to that, you know, mental health and what, I don't know what's going on with that. Every mayor promises the same thing. We never see anything with that. And it's just a recurring theme, the recurring revolving door of crime that never ends, Jack.
So I have a message for any precinct commander out there that's thinking about fudging crime stats, bumping felonies down to misdemeanors, trying to kind of push some things under the rug. You guys do realize this has the potential to totally blow up in your face. You remember a couple months ago when a commander of a Queen precinct in transit got caught fudging the numbers and he ended up facing potential demotion? What about when you're in a community meeting and people are saying, hey, I got 5 notifications on the Citizen app last month that there was a burglary here, there was a robbery here, there was a larceny here, there was a rape around the corner, and I don't see any felonies on the crime report. So once people start to notice the crime trends and they start to do a little bit deeper digging, the cops are going to start to realize that private citizens are just as smart as them when it comes to crimes going on in their neighborhood. And they're going to demand more because at the end of the day, it's public safety at risk. If you're caring more about how your precinct is doing than the people in your neighborhood, then that's a huge ethical issue. And I think it's up to Jessica Tisch to discourage this type of behavior because really she's been the main culprit when it comes to brushing crimes under the rug and kind of saying, we're going to hide this. We're not going to focus on this. There's more pressing issues. So we're going to kind of put the Q teams on the back burner for the time being. Develop a more uniform system about how you're going to look at various crimes and how you're going to enforce consequences. And you're not going to have problems with people fudging numbers anymore because this is a really, really big issue.
Yeah. And, you know, Eric points out something else because I forgot to mention this. Intro 1237A is in effect now, transparency in crime data reporting. That was a law that was put into place. That was passed by city council. So now this very instance, and this is what I'm trying to tell you, especially if you're a cop in the street, whatever it is, whatever is being alleged to you, especially if you have camera that shows you, just write the report. It is what it is. It's not anyone's job. It shouldn't be a sergeant or lieutenant telling you what to do. It is what it is. Stick with the facts of what's being said. And if it's not, they'll downgrade it later. They'll do what's called a DD5 in the NYPD. But it is a burglary in the 3rd degree. I saw it when I first saw it. I said, what are they saying? Attempted. And I knew they would try to do this, but it's in real time. And I wanted to show you that this is how things happen. It was never, none of us are crazy. We're not trying to sound like we hate certain people, but you have to file these things, you know, like, why are you doing this? Who is making you the, you know, overall, like official on this report has to be this because it has to fit into our little narrative, the soccer mom's little narrative, you know? That's what this has become, you know. I don't know. I mean, Michael M. says he agrees with the crime charge. I was on the job for beginning a Comstat understand numbers game. Yes, burglary fits with petty larceny, but even before Comstat, attempted larceny works for me. It is a burglary. That's what I'm saying. Anyone knows, and they know what's going on here. And the thing is I'm a bit of a reformer. In fact, that's what I like to do. That should just be written the way it is. Anything short of manipulating this for the commanding officer or the soccer mom is disgraceful. And people should say enough is enough, because they're telling you that crime is down when incidents like this happen, and all they're doing is they're just declassifying crimes and then shifting around numbers and making it feel, they're just pulling the wool over your eyes. If you watch this press conference from today, you will hear from the soccer mom, historic. You know what's historic? Historic is how you're just basically doing historic perception management and controlling narratives. That's historic. Other than that, this has been going on forever, and people just want transparency. That's all we're asking for. That's it. Doesn't matter what state you're in, what country you're in. People just want transparency and honesty. Why won't you give it to them, soccer mom?
And if people are wondering why there's so many people within the department that are failing upwards, perhaps this can explain why. If you're fudging the crime numbers, you look like you're doing a good job. You're promoted then into a better position where you have more responsibilities. Maybe you lie there, you get another promotion. And then all of a sudden you have someone running the department who's totally incompetent, doesn't understand how to bring crime down, and has lied their entire career in order to get promotions. And that's really where I think a lot of people take objection to this thing, because they're going to have public safety people within the department who are supervising and calling all the shots, who really don't have a proven track record of success in public safety. They just made friends with the right people. They, look like they were doing things the right way at CompStat meetings, but at the end of the day, they weren't the sole ones responsible for bringing crime down. Also, there's problems when precincts actually are bringing crime down, but the commanding officer is sitting in their office eating popcorn, scrolling through Facebook, while the sergeants and lieutenants are out on the street doing the hard work. So, let's diagnose who's responsible for the crime strategies and the various initiatives before we rush to such quick conclusions as Jessica Tisch has been doing over the past month or so, really saying crime is down, when in reality, violent crimes have never been higher over the past decade.
Yeah, it's a fact. I give the last comment of the day. Jay Ramming, if you know, that's really Joel Ramirez, says, let's stop searching on Google for the prices of items sold on black markets at lower rates just to classify them as misdemeanors. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on, and I'm just asking for some round of applause. But yes, I guess we want some transparency. That's what we're really asking for. So listen, it's a new year. It's a new beginning. Thank you all for being here. If you can, like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the like button on X. If you could share this out, share this out to all your friends in the low information bubble. It would be highly appreciated. Thank you for everyone that's sticking here in the comments. I love you all, even the haters, certain people that just can't stop tweeting, I think, when they shouldn't be. And we'll be back on Thursday. From now on, like I said, it's going to be Mondays and Thursdays at 11:05 a.m. That will be the new time for the Sal Greco Show. We'll be streaming right now on the Sal Greco Show on a channel on YouTube and on my X at the Sal Greco, and I'm trying to figure out how to do everything else. But until then, this is where you see us. Thank you for sticking with me, and I'm going to sign off. And by the way, we're going to have your favorite clip still, because I know you love that dark, sick person thing with Eric Adams. So sign off from South Florida, where, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people. Now, I know you're tired of searching on the web for things and not getting the results you're looking for. I have something for you. FreeSpoke. FreeSpoke is a search engine that is all about authenticity rather than agendas. Labels, media bias, no intrusions, or data leaking, or your data being taken from you. Porn free, none of those ads, unlimited, unbiased AI, deep dive podcast searching, and you can get it by going to freespoke.app.link/Greco. Use the same link to get a 35% discount on your premium subscription. What are you waiting for, folks? This is the way of the future. FreeSpoke.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, and in the Daily News today, it was stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book, and it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been covering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a Black man, that in the book it stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book, but that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.